Here's a question for you this morning. What's your view on feminism? Lucy Ballantyne, campaigns manager at the Fawcett Society, and Albie Amankona, broadcaster and Conservative commentator, is here as well. Apparently, there's a new report suggesting that Gen Z are more likely than older baby boomers to believe in feminism, doing more harm than good.
Yeah, I think we're really experiencing now a period of backlash, which I think feminists are sort of used to, you know. I think that's a term that was coined by Susan Faludi back in the 90s. We know that feminism popularity goes up, popularity goes down, and wherever there's progress, there's pushback. And, you know, we remember 10 or so years ago, the question on everyone's lips was, is so-and-so a feminist? Is X celebrity a feminist? And that's because we were sort of emerging from a period of backlash. And I think that that word had some cachet, and that sort of we successfully emerged from that period of backlash, and we're starting to experience that period of backlash again.
Where are you, Albie, on that?
I think what's interesting about this backlash is where the backlash is happening from, i.e. it's happening, it would appear, with younger men from the Gen Z cohort, the 16 to 29 cohort. And usually you would expect people to become more progressive and more liberal the younger they go down the age scale. But there seems to be a change specifically with Gen Z, which hasn't happened with millennials, by the way. And so then we've got to think, why is this happening? Now, there are a couple of theories around this. I think one of the main ones which is going around is you have this entire generation of young men who have been told by mainstream society almost that their masculinity is toxic, that they are the problem, that we live in a patriarchal society and all the problems of society stem from patriarchy. Now, if you just tell...
generalisation.
Well, this is what is going on out there. This is how young men feel. And if that is how young men feel, we shouldn't be surprised when they go towards people who are telling them that, no, they're not the problem. Actually, they're the solution. There is good in masculinity. There's nothing wrong with having fun with the lads. So you get these people like Andrew Tate and Jordan Peterson filling the void that mainstream society should be filling by telling these young people, actually, all right, there are some issues of disparities between men and women, but you aren't the problem, actually, you're part of the solution.
Aren't baby boomer mothers filling those gaps and telling their young boys who are 16 to 29, my son's 30, that, you know, feminism has its place, but you've also got a place, son, and you need to flourish in whichever society you want to live in?
Yeah, I think what is really interesting about that too is that there's a risk in when we talk about this, talking about, you know, boys and men being kind of sitting ducks, having this information or seeking out the information even to fill the gap. And I think we need to understand too that, you know, we're talking about the internet largely. That's the way the information's coming in. That's how young boys and men are accessing this. And the experience of the internet for millennials during their coming of age was so different to what the internet is like now. You know, it's still a vast expanse of information, but, you know, when I was a teenager, the way you navigated the internet felt expansive because of the way you kind of hopped from page to page. There's still all that information, but it's coming through 3 to 4 social media platforms. And
so what do we need to do, Albie, to reassure young men that they can have a night out with the lads, they can go to the footy, they can be masculine and still support feminism?
I think we've got to be talking about masculinity and the young male experience more positively. Another big issue that we see in the young male population are levels of suicide. I think it's the biggest killer of young men, and I've had my own mental health struggles. And it's about allowing men, when they have problems, to actually talk about those problems without saying, well, actually, it's so much worse for women. No one wants to hear when they're going through some sort of personal crisis that actually it's worse for someone else. But it feels that with young men, a lot of things are dismissed as man flu or just men acting up, and it's so much worse for other people. When actually young men are having problems, they want someone to say, it's OK, I'm here to help. What can we do to make things better? And I don't feel that that is what has been going on enough.
Yeah, I think I do agree with that. And I think we always need to remember, you know, a lot of this misogynistic language that is online, it's not just ideas, it's sort of it exists in the realm of ideas, but it is a form of violence that's done to women and girls, and we're seeing it moving from the sort of realm of ideas into a sort of, you know, a material concern, that it's in schoolyards, that we see actual violence emerging. But I would agree that, you know, we need to talk about the fact that patriarchy diminishes life for men and women, and that men are critical to the fight for equality. You know, at Fawcett Society, we did some research into gender norms and stereotypes in the early years, in early childhood. And we found some really interesting things about what happens to girls, but also what happens to boys. And those kind of norms come in so early on in life. You know, we found there's research that says, you know, typically a little boy is allowed to cry for a shorter period of time before a parent or a caregiver intervenes. And no parent or caregiver is deliberately thinking, oh, I'm going to let my little son cry for less amount of time. But those norms are so deeply ingrained. And so when we talk about the material concerns of feminism, yes, we're talking about jobs, careers, school, you know, women in STEM, all of that sort of thing. But we're also talking about things as fundamental as men being able to talk about their emotions and what space we give to boys to feel. And that's not a system that works for anyone.
And I think that's really important, actually, because I think it's about realising that both genders, both sexes have their own unique problems and they need solving. And I think perhaps the feeling for a lot of young men is that there has been a lot of attention on women's problems, quite rightly. There are huge disparities between women and men in the workplace, in education, in healthcare outcomes, so on and so forth. But that doesn't mean that there aren't specific problems that need to be tackled for British men, whether or not that is mental health issues, whether or not that's physical health issues that affect men more than women. We've got a king who has recently been seen for an enlarged prostate and is very sick. That is a men's health issue. Breast cancer was something we spoke about for a very long time. A lot of awareness about it, much less awareness about prostate cancer and issues around the prostate. So that's another example being borne out in the media at the moment. There are specific issues that men face, specific issues that women face, and they need to be tackled with equal vigour.
We must leave it there, guys. A fascinating discussion. Thank you for taking the time to join us this morning. Thank you. Really interesting stuff. Thank you.